Pranks target Frail Custodian. They pick wrong guy. He's a retired ranger. Montgomery Monty Fairweather wheeled his cleaning cart down the shimmering floor of Oakhaven High, the rattle of loose bottles echoing in the empty halls. At 68, he shuffled with a pronounced hitch most kids blamed on old age, although the truth stretched back farther. His gnarled fingers held the push-broom handle with surprising firmness, and his sky-blue eyes missed nothing as they scanned the passages he'd been tending for the last 5 autumns. Oakhaven High sheltered the city's most fortunate pupils in grey granite buildings trimmed with sculpted hedges. The administration took pride in achievement and tradition, but didn't highlight the pecking order which arose when entitled, "Adolescents imagined their lineage made them immune." Monty had noticed it all long before. He kept to himself, finished his duties, and tried to blend in. Generally, it worked smoothly. "Get out of the way, Gramps," boomed a gruff voice from behind. Monty swiveled slowly to see Reginald Reggie Winthrop IV strutting down the hallway with his usual followers. Broad and muscled, with expensively tousled brown hair, Reggie behaved like a monarch surveying his kingdom. His mother held a spot on the school's funding committee, as everyone recalled. Trailing behind him were his constant partners, Butch Kowalski, a squat football player with cruel tendencies, and Tiffany Sinclair, whose cutting sarcasm stung sharper than any lash. "My fault," Monty grumbled, pulling his cart against the wall. "Didn't mean to get in your way." Reggie stopped, studying the custodian with clear revulsion. "Know what your downfall is, Fairweather? You imagine you fit in here? You're just hired help. You mop up our grime and vanish." Butch chuckled. "My mom heard they hired him just because they needed some old-timer image boost. Washed-up vet pity job." The words landed hard, but Monty's face stayed blank. He had accepted long ago that responding to goading made it harsher. These kids knew nothing of true struggle or serving something grander than themselves. "I need to get back at it," Monty spoke softly. "You should do that," Tiffany piped up, her voice coated in sweet deceit. "The toilets on the upper level are completely nasty. Some of us actually value cleanliness." They sauntered past him, their snickers drifting down the hallway. Monty watched them recede, his jaw flexing nearly unseen. In another time, in another world, disrespect of that type brought penalties. Yet this was leafy suburbia, and he was only the caretaker. The arrangement cemented itself across the ensuing weeks. Reggie and his crew took special pleasure in complicating Monty's work, tipping over rubbish bins, dragging dirt over pristine floors, and leaving messes in the toughest spots. Always with the identical sneer, always barely believable enough to deny if questioned. In the teacher's break room, Monty overheard discussions he wished he could block out. Ms. Jacobson, the physics instructor, moaned about damage in her lab. Mr. Davis reported missing items from the weight room. Yet when suspicion settled on definite pupils, the dialogue always settled the identical way. "Their folks contribute too much cash. We can't afford to rock the boat." Monty grasped the dynamic. He'd witnessed similar rot in different bodies, different spots where influence sheltered the culprit. Yet understanding didn't dilute the sting. The true surge launched on a muggy Thursday in September. Monty was polishing the central lobby when he noticed Reggie stalking Beatrice "Bea" Blumen near her locker. Bea was peaceful, scholarly, the sort of pupil who remained focused on studies. She also ranked among the rare folks at Oakhaven who treated Monty with common courtesy, always offering a grin and a warm hello when they passed. "Come on, Blumen," Reggie was murmuring, his voice hushed but audible enough that Monty could hear from the entrance. "Just one movie. My family has connections at State. Might be a big advantage for somebody like you." Bea's voice barely registered. "I said no. I'm not interested." "Not interested?" Butch cackled. "You ought to be thankful somebody like Reggie even sees you exist." Monty's grip tightened on his push-broom handle. The metal creaked faintly under the pressure, a sound his old comrades would have recognized. It echoed the sound Sergeant Fairweather made just before trouble broke loose. Yet this wasn't Southeast Asia. This wasn't his struggle. He was just the cleaner. Bee fled, her books held against her chest. Reggie yelled after her, his words nasty enough that Monty had to force himself to keep working. The youth's laughter chased Bee down the corridor like poison. That afternoon, Monty found himself remaining late to buff the auditorium floor. The back-and-forth motion aided his thinking, aided his handling of what he'd viewed. In the distance, he heard drama club rehearsal echoing from the stage. "Still around, old-timer?" Monty glanced up to see Reggie and Butch obstructing the entryway. Rehearsal had clearly wrapped, and most of the school was deserted except for a handful of lingerers. "Just finishing up," Monty answered, not looking up from his work. "You know," Reggie stated, strolling into the auditorium, "I've been pondering our talk from the other day, about knowing your proper place." Butch shadowed him, his linebacker Bill dominating the doorway. "Some people just don't get it." Monty straightened slowly, his spine protesting the action. "Is there something you boys need?" "Need?" Reggie sneered. "We need you to grasp that this school runs by rules, a hierarchy, and you're at the very bottom." "I get that," Monty said calmly. "Do you?" Butch took a step forward. "Because it appears you've gotten a bit too relaxed. Strutting around like you're a part of things, even speaking to students like that bloomin' dame." The mention of B fired a cold spike of fury through Monty's chest. He kept his expression neutral, yet something shifted in his stance. Decades of military training had taught him to read scenarios, to gauge threats, to ready for conflict even while hoping to avoid it. "I do my work," Monty stated. "I don't bother folks." "But you are annoying someone," Reggie shot back, edging closer. "You're annoying me. See, my friends and I chatted, and we believe it's time you learned your lesson." What followed occurred with the dreadful inevitability of a landslide. Butch acted first, advancing to shove Monty backward. The elderly man stumbled, his stiff hip giving out, and slammed against his wheeled cart. Soapy water splashed across the polished floor. "Whoops," Butch said with mocking concern. "Looks like you've got more cleaning to do." Reggie joined in, kicking the cart so it sailed away from Monty's grasp. "Maybe next time you'll learn to steer clear." Monty pushed himself upright slowly, water soaking through his coveralls. His hip throbbed, and he felt heat where his fingers had scraped the floor. Yet it wasn't the physical hurt that bothered him. It was the laughter, the same callous laughter he'd heard in the hallway when they'd targeted B. "Are we done here?" Monty inquired, his voice firm despite the rage swelling in his chest. "We're just warming up," Reggie grinned. He withdrew his smartphone and snapped a photo of Monty sprawled on the floor. "This is getting posted online. Maybe the school board will realize they need to replace the janitorial staff." That night, Monty sat in his small flat above the bakery on Elm Street, tending his scraped fingers and aching hip. The walls were bare, adorned only with snapshots from his time in uniform and a neatly folded flag in a glass case. 22 years in the Ranger Corps, 4 tours overseas, 3 in the jungle. He'd led men into danger and earned ribbons to fill a box. None of that mattered now. To the pupils at Oakhaven High, he was only the elderly cleaner who mopped up their mess. Yet as Monty stared at those pictures, at the faces of Rangers who'd trusted him with their lives, something began to change. He'd taken this job because he needed the income, needed the health coverage, needed something to fill the hollow hours since retirement. He'd tolerated the disrespect because he assumed it was the cost of a peaceful life. He'd been mistaken. The next morning delivered news that solidified his choice. Babe Blumen wasn't at school. According to the hushed talks Monty overheard while emptying bins, Reggie had published the photo of Monty on many social media pages with captions ridiculing both the custodian and B. The shame had been too much for the quiet girl. and she'd called in sick. For the first time in 5 years, Monty didn't head directly to the supply closet when he reached school. Instead, he paused at the headmaster's office. "Can I assist you, Mr. Fairweather?" inquired Mrs. Johnson, the school secretary. "I must speak with Headmaster Crowley," Monty answered. "He's quite busy at the moment. May I take a message?" Monty looked at her squarely, and something in his eyes made her reach for the intercom without another word. Headmaster Crowley was a wiry man with anxious mannerisms who devoted his entire career to dodging conflict. When Monty entered his office, Crowley barely glanced up from his documents. "What's on your mind, Fairweather?" "We have a problem," Monty stated, taking a chair without being asked. "A pupil named Reggie Winthrop has been performing actions that create a threatening environment for pupils and staff." Crowley's pen stilled. "That's a grave accusation." "It's a grave circumstance." Monty's voice carried a strength that Crowley had never sensed from the cleaner before. "Yesterday, he and Butch Kowalski physically assaulted me in the auditorium. They're also targeting a pupil named B. Blumen. Now hold on," Crowley spoke, finally looking up. "Physical assault is a rather strong term. Are you sure it wasn't a simple misunderstanding?" Monty reached into his pocket and withdrew his phone, showing Crowley the social media posts Reggie had shared. The headmaster's face paled as he scrolled through the images and comments. "This is concerning," Crowley confessed. "Yet Reggie's mother, his mother doesn't grant him the authority to attack staff or abuse pupils," Monty interrupted. "I'm filing a formal complaint. I expect action." Crowley shifted uncomfortably in his seat. I'll investigate, yet these issues take effort. Due process, we can't simply..." "How much time?" Monty asked. "Well, there are protocols, reviews. We need to be thorough." Monty rose slowly, his sky-blue eyes never leaving Crowley's face. "You have 48 hours to handle this circumstance. If nothing happens, I will contact the funding committee directly, and the local constables." The firmness in his voice, the serene certainty, reminded Crowley abruptly that this wasn't simply an elderly cleaner. This was a man who'd commanded rangers in war zones, who'd faced enemies that made entitled teens seem like playground squabblers. I understand," Crowley stammered. Monty swiveled to depart, then paused at the threshold. "One more thing, Headmaster Crowley. B. Blumen is a fine pupil who deserves to feel secure at this school. Please remember that when you're making your choices." The next day, B returned to school, yet the atmosphere had grown strained. Word of Monty's meeting with Crowley had somehow leaked, and Reggie raged. He cornered Monty in the storage closet at lunchtime, his face flushed with fury. "Think you're clever, old man?" Reggie spat. "Running to Crowley like some kind of snitch? You just made the worst mistake of your pathetic life." Monty continued arranging supplies, his motions measured and calm. "I did what I needed to do." "What you needed to do?" Reggie edged closer. "I'll demonstrate what you need to do. My mom already called Crowley. Know what took place?" "Nothing, because Crowley knows which side his bread is buttered on." Butch appeared in the doorway, obstructing Monty's escape. "You ought to have stayed in your lane, cleaner." "Crowley can't protect you forever," Reggie continued. "And when he's not around, when there are no cameras, no witnesses, that's when you'll grasp what befalls folks who cross the Winthrop family." Monty turned to confront them both, and briefly, something flickered in his eyes that made Butch take an unwilling step back. It was the look of a man who'd seen actual violence, actual consequences, actual warfare. Yet the moment passed, and Monty was simply the caretaker once more. "I need to return to my duties," he stated softly. They permitted him to pass, yet their snickers trailed him down the hallway. The final straw arrived 3 days afterward. Monty was vacuuming the library after hours when he heard voices from the technology lab next door. Through the thin divider, he recognized B's voice, high with fear. "Please, just let me be. I haven't done anything to you." Haven't done anything." That was Reggie's voice, dripping with false innocence. "You got our pal here in hot water with Crowley? That's something for sure." Monty set down his equipment and moved quietly toward the technology lab. Through the doorway, he could view Bee cornered near the rear of the space, her backpack held defensively in front of her. Reggie and Butch had positioned themselves between her and the exit. "We only want a conversation," Butch spoke, cracking his knuckles. "About respect, about knowing your place." "I don't want any problems," Bee whispered. "Too late for that," Reggie retorted. "See, when folks mess with our lives, we mess with theirs. Fair is fair." Monty stepped into the doorway. "That's enough." All three teens turned toward him. Reggie's expression changed from shock to cruel delight. Well, look who's playing hero now." Reggie motioned for Butch to move closer to the doorway. "This is perfect, really. We can handle both our problems at once." "B," Monty said calmly, not taking his eyes off the two youths. "Walk toward me slowly." B began to move, yet Butch shifted to block her path. "I don't think so, old-timer." She stays put. "This is between me and you," Monty stated, stepping deeper into the space. "Leave her alone." Reggie cackled. "You're in no position to make demands." "Really, I believe it's time you learned what occurs when the hired help gets out of line." He drew his smartphone and began recording. "This will be perfect. Video proof of the crazy old cleaner attacking pupils. My mom will have you arrested and sued into oblivion." Butch acted first, rushing toward Monty with the assurance of somebody who'd never faced true resistance. He was strong, well-trained in high school football, and 15 years younger than his target. He might as well have charged a brick wall. Monty sidestepped the attack with flowing precision, his hand flashing out to seize Butch's wrist as the youth stumbled past. In one smooth motion, he twisted the arm and swept Butch's feet, sending the linebacker crashing to the floor with a stunned grunt. "What the hell?" Reggie stopped recording, his face paling. Butch tried to rise, but Monty's foot pressed securely against his back, keeping him down without excessive pressure. "Stay down, son. You're not injured, and I'd prefer to keep it that way." "You can't do this," Reggie yelled. "You're just a cleaner. My mom will destroy you." Monty glanced at him with the patience of a man who'd handled far more dangerous foes. "Your mom isn't present right now. It's simply us." Reggie withdrew his phone again, but his hands trembled. "I'm calling security." "Good call," Monty agreed. "While you're at it, call Headmaster Crowley. Tell him I'd like to revisit that hostile environment we chatted about." Bee had pressed herself against the far wall, her eyes wide with disbelief. She'd never seen anyone handle Butch so simply, so effortlessly. The linebacker was strong enough to deadlift triple his weight, but he might as well have been a child in Monty's hands. "How did you—" Reggie began, then stopped. 22 years in the Ranger Corps," Monty stated simply. 4 tours overseas, 3 in the jungle. "I've been in more altercations than you've had birthdays, son. Most of them were with folks trying to kill me, not spoiled kids throwing tantrums." The words struck Reggie like physical blows. All his life, he'd utilized his family's wealth and leverage as arms, never considering that some folks couldn't be purchased or threatened. He was facing a man who'd volunteered to run toward danger, who'd guided other rangers through some of the deadliest spots on Earth. "Let me up!" Butch struggled under Monty's foot. "In a moment," Monty responded. "First, we're going to discuss respect, about how we treat others, about what it takes to be a man." "You're crazy," Reggie spat, but his voice lacked its edge. "Maybe," Monty agreed. "Decades of military service can do that to somebody. Makes you value things like honor, duty, protecting those who can't protect themselves, makes you less tolerant of bullies and cowards." He increased the pressure on Butch's back just a bit. "You see, boys, I've been watching you for months, watching you make life hell for anybody you imagine is beneath you. Watching you torment a fine pupil like B here because you believe your mommy's money makes you invincible. My mother will have you dismissed, Reggie threatened, but the words rang hollow. "Your mother can try," Monty answered, "but I've documented every incident, every attack, every act of abuse. I have witnesses. And I have video proof of you two trapping B in a deserted technology lab after hours." Reggie glanced down at his smartphone, realizing he'd been recording his own crimes. "Here's what's going to happen," Monty continued, his voice carrying the authority of a man used to being obeyed. "You will delete that video, you will apologize to B, and you will leave her alone from now on." "Or what?" Butch wheezed from the floor. Monty grinned, but there was no warmth in it. "Then you'll discover what actual repercussions resemble. You see, boys, I may be just a cleaner to you, but I have allies. Allies in law enforcement, allies in the military, allies who frown upon privileged children, who imagine they can do whatever they please." The space stilled, except for Butch's labored breathing. B watched, fascinated, as two of the school's most feared bullies were reduced to scared children by a man they dismissed as harmless. "B," Monty spoke gently, not breaking eye contact with Reggie. "Are you okay?" She nodded, finding her voice. "Yes. Thank you. Good. Why don't you head home? I believe these boys and I need to complete our conversation." B gathered her things and hurried toward the threshold, pausing to look back at Monty with something approaching awe. "Mr. Fairweather, thank you for everything." After she left, Monty finally lifted his foot from Butch's back. The linebacker scrambled away, his face red with humiliation and fury. "This isn't over," Butch snarled. "Actually," Monty said softly, "it is. Because if there's a next time, if you even glance at B. Bloomin the wrong way, if you trigger any more issues for the pupils or staff at this school, I will end your little reign of terror permanently." Reggie found his courage again, backed by a lifetime of privilege. "You can't threaten us. We'll tell everybody what you did here." "Go ahead," Monty said. "Tell them how two strong young men were overpowered by an elderly cleaner. Tell them how you were trapping a female pupil in a deserted technology lab. Tell them how you've been harassing school staff. Observe how that goes over with your classmates, with your folks, with college admissions officers." The truth of it struck them both at once. They were the ones who'd appear weak, who'd appear like predators caught in the act. Monty had twisted their own methods against them. "What do you want?" Reggie asked finally. "I want you to improve," Monty said simply. "I want you to realize that true strength stems from protecting folks, not harming them. True power stems from lifting others, not tearing them down." He moved toward the doorway, then paused. "You boys possess every advantage imaginable. Rich parents, fine schools, bright futures. Don't squander it all by being bullies and cowards. Become men instead." The next morning, word of the confrontation spread through Oakhaven High like wildfire. The tale grew with the telling becoming legend. Some claimed the elderly cleaner had fought off 7 attackers. Others said he'd been a Green Beret. Butch and Reggie, to their credit, didn't contradict the wilder versions. They appeared to realize that their reputations hinged on folks believing they'd lost to somebody formidable. B returned to school with her head held higher. Pupils who'd never acknowledged her before nodded respectfully in the hallways. The quiet girl who'd been targeted by bullies was now the pupil who'd been defended by a hero. Headmaster Crowley summoned Monty to his office once more, yet this time the dynamic had shifted. Crowley had heard the tales, had viewed the change in the school's atmosphere. Reggie's mother had indeed phoned, demanding action. But other parents had phoned as well. Parents whose children had been targets, who were grateful that somebody had finally stood up to the bullies. "It seems you've handled our problem," Crowley spoke carefully. "The problem was greater than 2 pupils," Monty responded. "The problem was a culture that permitted them to act with impunity. That's what needed to shift." Crowley nodded slowly. "And it has shifted. The boys have been different since yesterday. Quieter, more respectful." "Good," Monty said. "That's all I desired." Across the weeks that followed, Oakhaven High became a changed place. Reggie and Butch didn't disappear. They were still wealthy, still privileged, yet they were no longer untouchable. Other pupils had witnessed that bullies could be stopped, that somebody would champion the targets. Bae Blumen thrived in the new setting. She joined the debate team, made new acquaintances, and even began dating a youth from her history class. When she noticed Monty in the hallways, she always smiled and greeted him, and he always smiled back. Reggie eventually approached Monty directly, finding him vacuuming the auditorium after drama practice. The youth looked uneasy, unsure, younger than his years. "Mr. Fairweather, may I speak with you a moment?" Monty paused in his work. "Of course." "I wanted to apologize," Reggie said, the words rushing out. "For everything. The way I treated you, the way I treated Bea, all of it was wrong." Monty studied the youth's face, searching for hints of deception. He found none. "Thank you," Monty said simply. "That means a lot. I've been pondering what you said about being a man instead of a bully. I'm attempting to improve." "Good," Monty answered. "That's all any of us can do. Strive to improve from where we were yesterday." Reggie nodded and began to depart, then turned back. "Mr. Fairweather, were you really a ranger?" 22 years, Monty verified. "Thank you. For your service, I mean. And for teaching me something vital." As the youth walked away, Monty permitted himself a faint smile. Perhaps there was hope for the next generation after all. The school year concluded with Monty receiving an unexpected tribute. At the commencement ceremony, Headmaster Crowley summoned him to the stage to present him with a special recognition award for his service to the school. The applause roared, led by Bae Blumen and joined by pupils who'd never spoken to him but had witnessed his quiet bravery. Standing on that stage, viewing the sea of faces, Monty considered the journey that had brought him here. From the jungles overseas to the halls of Oakhaven High, the mission had remained the same. Champion those who couldn't champion themselves, confront bullies wherever they emerged, and never permit fear to dictate your actions. He'd spent 5 years being invisible, tolerating disrespect, attempting to dodge conflict. Yet in the end, he'd learned that some battles couldn't be dodged, some stands had to be taken. And often, the quiet cleaner in the corner was precisely the hero the setting demanded. As he walked back to his seat, Bae Blumen caught his eye and mouthed 2 words: "Thank you." Monty nodded once, a gesture that carried all the weight of his years of service, his devotion to duty, and his belief that everybody deserved to be treated with respect and dignity. He was still simply the caretaker, still the man who cleaned up others' mess. Yet now everybody knew that some messes demanded more than a mop and bucket to clean up. Sometimes they demanded a ranger. Length: 26,467 characters.